The wait is over. The whiteout game is here. Penn State versus Oregon. Playoff hopes are on the line. So let's make our official predictions.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is part 3, the finale of a Locked On crossover series to talk Penn State versus Oregon. My name is Zach Seyko. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily source for all things Penn State sports. He is Spencer McLaughlin, host of Locked On Ducks, Locked On College Football. He's been doing show appearances everywhere to talk about. I'm surprised you had enough energy for me to make it to this finale of the series, but we're here. We're going to make our official predictions, matchups to watch for that will decide the game, X factors, keys to the whiteout. We're going to give our case for why each team will win this football game. It's a 3.5-point spread for a reason. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. So Spencer, the floor is yours. I will let you go first. You have an open dialogue here to explain why Oregon wins this one. We'll save our score prediction for the end of this first segment here, but let's lay out all of the main reasons why Oregon, and then I'll take Penn State, of course.
Yeah, open mic night. Hopefully I do better than Jonah Hill in 22 Jump Street at the slam poetry event. So the case for Oregon winning this game is rooted in the offensive explosion plays. And when you create more of those, like Oregon did last year against Ohio State in the big game at Autzen Stadium, and they outgained them on the ground as well. We'll certainly get into all of that. But the explosion plays were the difference. Oregon's ability to take the top off, push the ball down the field. And they've got a group of guys this year that I think are more proficient at executing those sorts of plays. And Dylan Gabriel, Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart were the guys that really come to mind when I say explosion plays against Ohio State from last year's big game for the Ducks. In this game, it's Dante Moore to Malik Benson to Corey Moore, and I'll put Kenyon Sadiq in there as well. And I wonder if there isn't a back shoulder or Moss sort of moment from Kenyon Sadiq coming in this game. We haven't seen it this year. It hasn't been needed necessarily, but we know he's capable of that sort of play with his athleticism, lest Penn State fans forget how great his jumping ability is. So I think that's the biggest thing that you look at in Oregon's ability to shift momentum with those sorts of plays, to stay on the field and sustain drives and make easy touchdowns as well. It will be a different type of test for this Penn State defense than what they went up against last year in the Big Ten championship game. Obviously, Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator as well. But I want to go to this Oregon secondary as the second thing that is part of the blueprint for Oregon winning the game, because that was a question for me coming into this year. There's a lot of talent, but there wasn't a lot of experience. And through 4 games, it's hard to argue with the results those guys have had. The opposing quarterback numbers are abysmal in that opposing quarterbacks have been really bad against this Oregon pass defense. And the pass rush is a part of that. You got to speed up a quarterback when he's in the pocket. You got to make him uncomfortable, hit him a little, but the secondary has played really well. They haven't been flagged a lot. They've been good in the run game as well in support. So I think their ability to make it more difficult for Penn State to move the ball down the field, bring an extra safety in the box to limit the run game, make Drew Aller beat you on the perimeter. I think that combined with the explosive plays on offense are the areas that make me feel most confident about Oregon going into this game.
All right. Very well said. No critiques of Penn State, so I'm surprised about that one. So you gave all of the Oregon plus positives. Let me give you the Penn State plus positives. So you mentioned Jim Knowles. Okay, I think that's one, because when you look back at the Big Ten championship game, it was a shootout. It was a high-scoring event. It was 45-37, and the reason Penn State does not come away with a victory, the main reason anyway, is because of Tom Allen. Well, you upgrade a defensive coordinator. You don't just lose Tom Allen, you actually upgrade that spot, because that defense was still a top 10, top 15 conservatively defense in the country. And Penn State goes and gets objectively the best coordinator in all of college football in Jim Knowles, best defensive coordinator anyway. So that helps. And then you retain that defensive talent, right? Denied Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, Tony Rojas, you get Amari Campbell out of the transfer portal to really, because it's, Penn State doesn't have the same players that Ohio State did. No, but they still have some pretty good NFL caliber players themselves. Again, Dennis Sutton, Durant, freshman and Chaz Coleman that's really coming on strong. Tony Rojas, Amari Campbell, AJ Harris, who could be a first or second round NFL draft pick at cornerback. Zachy Wheatley isn't Caleb Downs, but he's doing a lot of similar things that Caleb Downs has done and is doing them well. You've granted the competition, of course. So you have that defense, you have an elite defense that can limit Oregon's offense in ways, right? But then I want to flip it over to, Penn State had its offensive struggles, criticisms anyway. It was the Tyler Warren show. Really, it was just running the football in the Tyler Warren show. And Penn State was still able to get 37 points against Oregon's defense that I do not know is, and they will prove me wrong on Saturday if this is the case, but I do not know as we sit here right now if Oregon's defense is better than last year's iteration of that defense. Okay. I think that it's good. I still think it's going to be one of the best defenses in the country, but is it better than the group that Penn State played last year that still put up 37 points against them despite all of those shortcomings that they had and one-dimensional aspects of that offense? So I do believe that Penn State, you don't need to throw the kitchen sink at Villanova, FIU, Nevada. You can save plays, yes, but it's also just kind of being conscious about, hey, is it really worth Drew Aller running the football in this moment here? Having him get hurt on a freak type of play? Is it really worth it? Drew Aller is going to be a little more involved in the ground game himself. Those reads that he would pass up on in those games in the non-conference, he's definitely going to take if it's there against Oregon. So Andy Kotelnicki had success the first time around. I think he'll have success again, particularly on the ground game. Okay, so Oregon's run defense is good, and it's because of that secondary. The reason Oregon's run defense is because that secondary is so reliant. They are so self-sufficient in one-on-one, man-to-man coverage that they can bring the linebackers up. They can be aggressive around the line of scrimmage. We'll see what Penn State does to kind of keep them honest there. Play action is going to be a big part of it. And, I haven't mentioned it yet. The whiteout crowd, cross-country trip, those factors matter. They do. Right? It's this isn't a meeting in the middle at Indianapolis. This is a full-on 6-hour flight. Staying in a hotel, driving up. It's a 45.
Is it 6 hours?
I think so. 5.5, 6 hours, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's full on 6. I think it's like 9 or so to get to Europe from the West Coast. 9-ish.
It's still a long. It's still long.
It's a long trip. Sorry, that was a random aside.
No, you're so maybe I don't have that, but it's 6 hours to California, so I guess that's what I'm going off of. It's still a lengthy trip across the country. All those things considered, Penn State's in, a pretty good spot with the 2 weeks to prepare. You get an extra week to prepare against Oregon. I think Penn State's healthier than where Oregon is right now. So all those things considered, Penn State does have one of the better setups to win a big game here that James Franklin desperately needs. I will say, though, there's less pressure on Oregon to win this game than there is Penn State if you want to factor that in.
No, I think that is a big factor that works in Oregon's favor. Is Dan Lanning is incredibly locked in based on his comments last week, is incredibly driven. We know how motivated a guy he is, and we see that every week, and that's really fun for people that are not typically able to peek behind the curtain there. But for Penn State, this is different. And James Franklin has to have been asked about it enough to the point I've asked him about it. I'm sure you've asked him about it before, and a number of other people have, that he doesn't win these big games, and he hasn't performed well against top 10 and top 5 opponents, and that has to weigh on him at some level. And the question is whether it weighs on his team, whether or not it creeps into his mind when, his kicker's lining up a field goal to take the lead with 3 minutes to go is irrelevant, because it really matters what that kicker is thinking about in that particular spot. So, I think that for Penn State in this spot, there is significantly more pressure. Emotionally, for Oregon fans, like, one of the reasons I'm excited about it is because it should be a really fun game. The rematch, the whiteout, it's all spectacular, and that's all really great and awesome. One of the reasons, frankly, as someone who really wants Oregon to win this game and prove that they're a national title threat for a second straight or third straight season, really, is I don't expect Oregon to win the game. And I kind of go in emotionally with house money, where, hey, if I get something back here, hey, great. I wasn't expecting to get that. But I've talked about this game, and so have you, for months, and it's awesome that it's finally here. But, the way that I've always looked at it is, can Oregon win the game? Yeah, they got to do a lot of things well. definitely with the start we've seen from them this season, they're capable. I don't think that it's some massive upset for Oregon to go in there and win. The deck is just stacked in favor of Penn State in this spot, and so that's one of the reasons I'm also excited to watch it. Is what, if Oregon loses this game, as long as they don't get blown out, I could still feel good after the game. There's no world in which Penn State loses, no matter what. If the outcome at the end of the day is a loss, bad vibes in Happy Valley, and that doesn't have to be the case in Oregon's camp.
We promised you our official score predictions. You are going to get them, plus keys to the game on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, they keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is Penn State's 2 running backs. Now, I know it's past the bye week, but back when they played Villanova and won 52-6, the ground game really started to emerge. And behind Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, they combined for 160 yards in the ground, 3 touchdowns. That's how you move the game forward. How about from Oregon's side of things? Against a rival like Oregon State, winning 41-7. Well, it helps when your quarterback goes 21 of 31. 305 yards, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers, and runs for 53 more yards on the ground himself, using his legs and his arm to propel this team forward. That is how you move the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, so now I think it's fitting to, as we ended the first segment, give the official score predictions. And just as I continue to hear some more analysis, have some other, conversations with everybody, whether they're Penn State affiliated people, college football, Oregon affiliated people, that this game is going to be, I say 31-27, Penn State. That's going to be my official score prediction. But like I said, as I have more conversations, I'm starting to get the sense that this is more of a defensive struggle because Penn State's defense and Oregon's defenses are performing really well, and Oregon's offense is performing well too, but it's how Penn State has adjusted to the Jim Knowles system and everything else, that they are just performing better. Jim Knowles has shown that at least he can succeed against a Will Stein offense in a game. You add in that cross-country travel, all those kinds of things. Is there going to be just are you going to have that 110% for the entire 4 quarters? I also look at it almost like a game 7 in an NBA game, in a basketball game, because every possession is going to be strategic. It's going to be intentional, every single play. So if you're thinking, oh, this is just a part 2 of Penn State versus Oregon, there should be a shootout here. No, it's not. It is more likely to be 20-17 than it is 45-37 again, regardless of the victor. So I say 31-27, but I would not be surprised if this score stays under.
Yeah, I think it's lower scoring than the Big Ten championship game. I still like the offenses here more than the people that you're indicating that you've heard from, and it's just a matter of who the coaches are, which is what these games ultimately come down to. I was talking with somebody about the game recently. I don't remember which episode it was, frankly, but
you've done a ton.
Yeah, I think it was with Brian actually, and we were talking about the talent level between Penn State and Oregon in this game, and whether you match up, Oregon's receivers against Penn State receivers, or Oregon's receivers against Penn State's defensive backs, like whether it's an offense-to-offense comparison or an offense-to-defense comparison, where's the huge gap? Where is the
nowhere?
Exactly. That's exactly my point. When you have those sorts of games, it tends to come down to coaching, and Will Stein, I think, has been really dialed in through the first few games this season. Going on the road, facing Jim Knowles again, yep, that's going to be a challenge, and he's going to have to figure out how to adjust to what Jim Knowles obviously adjusted to what he did in the first game, and find an answer for that down safety but behind the linebacker sort of look that Ohio State rolled out, because Oregon just in the passing and run game didn't have any answers for that. So that's something that I'm going to be watching for schematically in this game. And Oregon's defense so far this year, really impressive. They've allowed the starters have allowed 1 touchdown in 4 games, and that was to Oregon State. And in the first quarter, it was, I'm pretty sure scored in the first quarter. It looked like Oregon was kind of sleepwalking through that game. Can't do that here. Can't do that here. We're going to talk about our keys later. That's going to be pretty high on my list. So I think that for the Ducks in this spot, when the talent is pretty equal, it comes down to coaching. And Andy Kotelnicki in the offense haven't gotten off to the start that I and others expected them to, especially given the caliber of opponents, mostly against FIU, right? The other games, it was mostly fine. Is that a fair assessment?
Nevada was the best iteration of that. FIU was a little weird, and then Villanova didn't inspire enough confidence, right?
Gotcha.
So that's a fair take.
I think that for Kotelnicki, he's somebody who I've always liked as an OC. I think he's going to do well in this spot, and it's a huge game for Tosh Lupoi, Oregon's defensive coordinator, who has more than a few critics amongst Oregon fans. He can silence them in this spot, and the biggest number that I don't have a prediction of happening here because I'd like to see it happen before I feel, more confident than not that it will take place. He's got to hold a playoff team under 30 points. That just hasn't been the case in Oregon's biggest games over the last several years. And it hasn't only been in the losses, but in the wins sometimes as well, against Boise State, against Penn State, Ohio State. Go back to Texas Tech a couple of years ago. It was like that as well. Oregon won the game, and if you're giving up more than 30 points, boy, that's asking a lot. I know Dante Moore and the offense have been great. It's why I think they're going to get to at least into the high 20s against a great Penn State defense, because they've looked really good so far. It's just on the road with a long trip when Jim Knowles has an extra week to prepare. I think it's asking a lot to say, hey, offense, can you go get us 38 or 40 points to win this game? Like, Oregon's defense has to be able to step up. So my score prediction, Oregon fans, I love you. Don't hate me. This is only the second time I have ever predicted this. No, third time. Sorry, this is the third time that I've ever predicted this. But I think Penn State wins this game. 34-29 is my final score prediction.
Interesting.
And I think Oregon will go for 2 on one of their first 2 touchdowns in the game.
Okay.
So I don't anticipate getting a lot of positive feedback on that. I get it. Like, it's okay. It comes with the territory. But I'm going to tell you what I think. And I think Penn State wins this game. They should. And if they don't, it'll be a testament to the job that Dan Lanning and everybody has done. That's certainly what I'm hoping for. I'm not going to watch this game and think, I don't want Oregon to win. I want to be right. Like, no, I don't care that much. Frankly, I kind of don't like Seyko that predictions are a part of this industry in a way. Just because I think there are more interesting ways to talk about a game going into it. And, picks at the end of the day, like, pretty random. Like, Nick Saban picked Florida State to win the ACC. They went 2-10.
He's not wrong. He was just early because Florida State looks early. Florida State looks really good this year.
Yeah, not wrong, just early.
So, and I've been there with you, right? I understand that side of it, and I'll briefly, because I took Oregon in the Big Ten championship last year. I didn't think they had enough to keep up with Oregon's offense, and I was correct. And then they scored a lot more points from there. I didn't think Penn State would beat Ohio State at home either. So I'm not afraid to go against the team if I see, hey, writing's kind of on the wall here, and knowing
Did you pick them to beat Notre Dame in the playoff?
I did, unfortunately.
Okay,
I did.
Or else you would have been perfect, right? Last year, picking Penn State. That's still pretty good. I mean, they finished 13-2, and you were 14-1, picking their games straight up. That's not bad. That's not bad.
So spread's another question, though. But that's
that's a whole different category.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, it's sometimes there's just when you maybe know so much about a team. It starts to lead you to believe one thing or another, but that's why we get to, the keys of the game. Let's start off briefly here. You mentioned that Oregon needs to start fast. I think it's Penn State needs to play, play loose, play free, because the reason I'm picking Penn State is because I do see this as a different version of James Franklin's program where there's not, like I said, they really don't have an excuse to lose here. This is the offensive coordinator he wanted. This is the defensive coordinator that he wanted. He's hand selected on every single personnel member to where it was his top choice. And that's a difference in years past. Before it was, hey, you can go get your fourth best choice, go get your fifth best choice because we don't necessarily have the financial means or we don't want to give you the financial means to do it. You got your veteran core back because of a strong NIL boost to say, hey, we can make a title run if we have XYZ in dollars. Well, you got it. So now let the results translate. I've also just seen Franklin be a lot more relaxed. He's still Franklin, don't get me wrong, a little snarky here and there, additional sarcasm. He's not afraid to have
him.
But it's not
I'm not being facetious. I legitimately like James Franklin.
It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I've just noticed that Franklin, he almost has an on and off switch now where it seemed like he was on edge a lot of the times over the past few years. There isn't this pressure on him where he is a little too stern, a little too egregious with how he conducts himself. I've just kind of seen him be a little more dialed back, and that's new going into, year 12, year 13, right? I don't have that off the top of my head. I should, but yeah.
2016, I think.
Was it
20,
2014. 2014. 2014.
You're right.
So
right? You are correct. You are correct. So this is year 12.
Yes. So that's what I mean. So you talked about starting off fast. So that's where we're going to pick up going into the final segment, plus those key matchups, because Kenyon Sadiq against Zach Wheatley. That's going to be a big one. AJ Harris against Decorian Moore or Malik Benson. Penn State's defensive ends versus Oregon's offensive tackles. We're going to get into all of it coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend, time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Now, let's break it down. For Penn State, I'm going to go with 2 linebackers. In total, I'm going to go with 3 linebackers here, but 2 of them come from Penn State. When they played Villanova before the bye week, it was Amari Campbell and Tony Rojas that delivered. Amari Campbell leading the team in tackles for loss. Tony Rojas being avid in the pass rush, having 2 sacks in that game against Villanova. That's how you deliver. Same thing with Oregon. Bryce Betcher leading the way with 10 tackles. It was double the next player on that Oregon Ducks team when they went up against rival Oregon State. Now that's how you deliver. No hesitation, no delay. All of those players came through. And if you've been following week after week, you know these performances were not a fluke. And just like Amari Campbell, Tony Rojas, and Bryce Betcher delivered for Penn State and Oregon, respectively, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. And this episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What you'll love most is how portable they are. You can take them on the go anywhere with you. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. And all the different flavors that you can try. 17 bold flavors for you to choose from. So if you get bored with one, you can try another. If you want to try all of them, you absolutely can. But how fast 5 Hour Energy kicks in, that it's sugar-free. You don't have to worry about crashing later. Convenient, effective, enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get your favorites you love, or be bold. Try something new in store or online at 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com, or over at Amazon today.
Key matchups that define this game and keys to the game. I'll start, Zach. 3 keys for Oregon. Number 1, I think you have to get off to a strong start. It's been a struggle the last couple of weeks, and Dan Lanning has made remarks about that they weren't playing their best football always early on in the game. Punted on their first possession against Northwestern, 7-7 until the 5:40 mark in the second quarter against Oregon State, and then they turned it on. You can get away with that when you're, in the football sense, kind of playing with your food. You can't do that here against Penn State. I think they are too good. The crowd will get on top of you and get, to that extra gear. You've got to come out, and it doesn't need to be, a 4-play touchdown drive to begin the game. But if you can at least...
It'd be nice, though.
Yeah, it'd be great. Sure,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Both sides, either side.
Yeah, of course, that's what everybody wants. But at the very least, if Oregon can move the ball down the field, and if they do have to punt, put Penn State inside their own 10-yard line or get a field goal. Like, just kind of get some form of an icebreaker, some form of rhythm, so that you don't let Penn State start to, grow their confidence and energy level and start to feed off of that crowd a little bit more. So I think starting off strong, whichever side of the ball is on the field first. I bet if Oregon wins the coin toss, I bet they'll elect to receive. They did it against Utah in a game day game in 2023. And, we heard on Ducks versus them, Lanning say afterwards, hey, I hope they kick us the ball. And Utah won the toss and deferred. I'm usually a fan of deferring. Personally, that's just me. I've obviously seen it work both ways. And if you score on your first drive, it's great. But if you don't score on the first drive, then it feels like, well, that was not a great opportunity there. So number one for Oregon, got to get off to a strong start. Number two is force Drew Aller to beat you on the perimeter. I know the receivers are upgraded for Penn State. I like what I've seen from Oregon's secondary, and Aller hasn't gotten off to the greatest start so far this year. I don't want Penn State to be able to score 37 points while they run for more yards than they throw. I think that's really the threshold for Oregon in this spot. If Drew Aller goes for 310 and 3 touchdowns and beats you, I'm more okay with that than if you let Penn State just walk up and down the field, or run literally up and down the field. So that's key number 2. And key number 3, I thought a lot about where to go with this one, and there are a lot of different directions that I could go, but Oregon has to find a way to just be successful running the ball. We saw last year to win the game, they don't have to outgain Penn State necessarily. It's usually a good idea. I think Oregon has to have success there. Like, they don't have to go gangbusters for 7.2 yards a carry and 250 yards on the ground. It just needs to be, if you can replicate what they had against Ohio State last year, which was, I think, around 5 yards a carry and 155 yards, that's enough. Because what has made this Oregon passing attack so lethal this year is the play action game. And if you can't run the ball, well, guess what? The linebackers or DBs are not going to respect the play action threat that you have there. And so those explosive plays that I mentioned early in this show that are so important for Oregon's offense in this spot, I think those have mostly come off of play action. Not entirely. The back shoulder throws have been great and not off play action, but I think you've got to be able to find a way to just have some success running the ball. If I come away at the end of the game and say Oregon ran the ball well enough, I think they'll have been in a good position to win. So start strong, make Drew Aller beat you, and have some success running the ball. Those are my 3 biggest keys for the Ducks in this spot.
Yeah, and I pretty much, mine are almost inverses of what you said from the Penn State positive and the Oregon negative, right? It's the same kind of thing. It's because if you take taking Penn State's crowd out of it early, if Oregon goes up 10-0 or 14-0 by 2 scores, or 14-3, right? They get 2 touchdowns, and at the end of the first quarter, it's something like that. The whiteout crowd is going to be on ease. Like, here we go again, right? It's just elite teams across the board. Doesn't matter if they're comparable or better, they're going to beat Penn State. So that's kind of my biggest worry, concern for Penn State in this game. If we're talking about X's and O's, Jim Knowles, you want him to run his defense to a T and not have to adjust radically. So that means that Penn State's front 4, Denai Dennis Sutton, normally Zariah Fisher, but Chaz Coleman will get in there, Alonzo Ford, Zane Durant, that first 4 is going to have to create organic pressure. Because then on the back end of the defense, you can disguise coverages, you can run cover 3, you can run cover 2, you can run different blitzes, you can run zone, you can run man, instead of, and it allows you to bracket Kenyon Sadiq on specific plays. I don't think Zach Wheatley is going to win every single play-to-play battle, but I think he'll get his. I think Kenyon Sadiq will get his. I'm really eager for that one. Honestly,
that's a fun matchup. Really fun matchup.
That's the one that could, in theory, decide the game. Okay, and especially if Zach Wheatley isn't playing his best, and you're not able to bracket Sadiq, because it's kind of the same thing, AJ Harris against De'Corian Moore. If you have to devote additional coverages because a star player is breaking out in the moment, It's the front four. It's the battle in the trenches, particularly Dennis Sutton, Fisher, and Coleman against Oregon's offensive tackles. Getting Drew Aller into rhythm. So like you said, we want Drew Aller to win the game through the air and have literally not have Penn State's ground game just walk up and down the football field and just kind of, dictate the pace of the game. It's getting Drew Aller into rhythm where he's comfortable, because I don't think Aller needs to throw for 300 yards to win this game, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, whatever have you. I think he needs to be efficient. Do not get behind the sticks, convert on third down, move the football in the red zone, those kinds of, because that's still an elite performance in my mind, even though it's not, 350 and five touchdowns. Man, Drew Aller really willed them to victory, because I don't think that's this kind of game. He had to do that in the Big Ten championship. It fell short. This is a game where, like I said, game 7 type of vibes, where every possession, every play is going to be strategic and intentional, and Penn State's going to want to lean on the ground game more. And why not? You have 2-star running backs, right?
Yeah, I think that, a big position group that kind of is an honorable mention of sorts, key to the game for the Ducks in this spot, linebacker play has to be good. They have to be able to deal at all 3 levels of the defense with motions and shifts and tempo that Andy Kotelnicki used to a T in the Big Ten championship game, and Oregon just didn't have consistent answers for, or any at all, quite frankly. I mean, they had a coverage bust that led to the touchdown to Amari Evans over the top, and Penn State ran the ball well and went side to side, and Oregon just felt like they were, not sure where they were supposed to be, weren't playing fast enough. Not that they aren't fast enough players, that they weren't playing fast enough. They weren't reading and diagnosing and understanding where, a certain action dictated where they needed to be on the field. So I think for Oregon's linebackers in this spot, Bryce Betcher, Jerry Mixon have been really good. Better against the pass, I think, than against the run. I mean, Bryce Betcher's really good against the run. Mixon's been better against the pass and the run, but good overall. Devin Jackson has struggled a bit this year. If he has a breakout game, that could be a big factor for Oregon's defense. But I think that, the motion, tempo, and shifts that Penn State utilized in the Big Ten title game, if I'm Andy Kotelnicki, I come right out and use a lot of that stuff and say, Tosh Lupoi, have you made the adjustments with all those new faces over there on the defensive side of the ball? Have you got these guys more prepared for this action? Because I know schematically this worked against your unit a lot last year, and let's see if you've made the changes. If you have, all right, I'll go to a counterpunch with this, that, and the other thing. But I'd expect to see a lot of that early in the game from Penn State.
Who are your MVP picks, so to speak, for Oregon? If Oregon's going to win this game, who's the offense?
Dante Moore is basically the entire list. I don't think a running back will have enough carries or, go for 3 touchdowns on 4 carries like they would against Oklahoma State, to the point where it could be a running back. They spread the ball around a lot in the passing game, so I don't know it'd be a receiver. A defensive player that, makes a big play, or if Mateo Uiagalelei has a great game, or Amari Washington. I'm chair, of course, of the Amari Washington fan club, so I'd love if that happened. But if, somebody like that I could see, but I think Dante Moore, it's such a big test for him. He's got to be able to get the communication right. He's going to face more adversity in this game than he has all season combined, quite frankly. He's had a lot of clean pockets and easy games and open throws, and he's had some not so open throws, and he's looked special, and he's read defenses really well. Here's the best defense you've faced. Here's the best defense coordinator you've faced. Here's the most hostile environment that you've faced, and here are the most moments of adversity you're going to see maybe in a game all season long, with regards to how many times you throw an incompletion or make a bad read and get fooled, or you get hit in the pocket, or any number of things. You can't get the communication right. Like, there are a lot of things that can go wrong. So the most likely pick, if Oregon wins this game, is I'll come out and say, yeah, Dante Moore's the MVP that led him to a win. And if he does that, he'll be the Heisman favorite by Sunday morning, maybe even Saturday night.
Be late Saturday night, right? Makes a ton of sense. Couldn't agree with you more. To briefly, sum it all up for Penn State, it's going to be in the trenches. Dennis Sutton's going to have to get pressure on Oregon's quarterback, Dante Moore. And I think collectively Penn State's offensive line, because then, Drew Aller will feel more comfortable to help get him into rhythm. And then, of course, the ground game to set up play action and everything else. Penn State's offensive line, if they win this game, would be the offensive MVP. The defensive MVP, it's probably going to come from Dennis Sutton, or if Zach Wheatley's able to one-on-one shut down or at least limit Kenyon Sadiq more than he's expected, has that capability as well. Wow, 3 parts crossover. Hopefully Oregon and Penn State play in the Big Ten championship and then get another rematch in the college football playoff.
Yeah, we can make how many crossovers did we do during the season or the off season? 3? I think it was 3. Yeah. So we've done 6 total episodes on this game. We could do more. We could do more, frankly. There's always more out there. But I'll wrap with this kind of olive branch of emotion extending here to Penn State fans. This is only the 3rd time in my history hosting Locked On Ducks that I have picked Oregon to lose a game. It's not the only time I would have potentially been wrong. I've picked them to win, and they have lost on a handful of occasions. But the only other times were Georgia 2022 and Washington on the road 2023, and they lost both of those games. So just know, Zach, that when Oregon wins this game 40-30, you are going to block my Twitter account.
Well, I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate your honesty and analysis. And like I said, I think most of the people that are listening and watching the show do appreciate that as well, that we're trying to take a pretty neutral approach and just be correct, be analytical. So I appreciate that about you, and I hope that's the same over in this case.
I'm sure every YouTube comment will be exactly like that, Zach.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure they'll all be that way.
Conversational, agreeable, all that good stuff. He is Spencer McLaughlin, does a great job covering the Oregon Ducks and all of college football with both of his shows. My name is Zach Seyko, your daily host of your daily source for all things Penn State sports, Locked On Nittany Lions. That's going to conclude our 3-part series. Hopefully we get to do more of this again. Oregon and Penn State will be a treat. 7:30 Eastern time kickoff, NBC, under the lights, whiteout game. Absolutely incredible. We've been waiting for it for such a long time over the off season and now going into the season. Spencer, thank you so much for the time. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Go Ducks, prove me wrong.
Tuning in for all of these episodes. But like I said, I really appreciate all the conversations we've had, Spencer.
Yeah, man, it's been great. Looking forward to the game. Hope everybody enjoys it.